trying to have a conversation with you. I'm trying to have a conversation with you. Are you listening? Do you hear me? 'Cause I'm trying to have a conversation with you. Welcome to I'm Trying to Have a Conversation with You, a podcast with two sisters who never seem to be done talking. I'm Kasha, and I'm Monique. And today, our conversation is about love. Oh, what's love got to do? Okay, let's get serious, okay?
Sorry.
You be cutting up. I don't know why you be doing all that.
Much. I'm doing too much.
So, I want to ask you first, what is love? Just as it is, what is love?
I don't have a Kasha brain, but when you said that, immediately the song, What is Love? Sorry. Because Baby Don't Hurt popped in my brain. All right. Seriously. I have a very, my thing is, love is something that is evolving because love starts out to me as a feeling, but then love becomes a conscious decision. And what I mean by that is this. Whether you're talking about friends that you love, family that you love, or an intimate partner that you love, it starts out the butterflies and the, oh my gosh, I just met this person and you're learning about them. Because when you first have a child and you have that family love, you get butterflies seeing them in your heart. And oh my gosh, all those things happen. And then they taper off they change, they evolve to something different. You don't love your kid less. I feel like, in fact, you love them more as you get to know them more and more. Same thing with a friend. First couple times you hang out with a friend, it doesn't come out as butterflies. It comes out as nerves, in my opinion. Like, I don't want to say anything stupid for this person because I don't know them well enough, blah, 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 blah. And then you get to know that person and you slowly start just letting them see you as you are. You get to see them as they are and you start to actually like them more with more familiarity. With an intimate partner, the butterflies of, oh my gosh, I met this person. And, it's this guy, he's so amazing and he's so handsome. And he's so this. And oh my gosh, he's so interesting and all those things. And then those will eventually go away and you get to know him in a more intimate way, not just physically intimate, but emotionally intimate, mentally intimate. And to me, if that's your partner, you learn to love them even more. But with all of those things, whether you're talking about your children, your family, your friends, your husband, your wife, at some point they're going to do something that bothers you. They're going to do something that you disagree with. They're going to do something that makes you angry. They're going to do something that makes you sad. They're going to do something that hurts your feelings. And in most cases, if this is a good friend, if this is your intimate partner, if it is your child for sure, you don't go, never talking to them again. You make a choice to still love them. You make a choice that has nothing to do with all those emotional parts of it. So I think for me, love is something that starts in your heart and migrates and evolves into your head.
I like
That's what I think. To me, that's the defining thing for love. And I think that it happens because of the kind of getting to know that person, whether you're talking about your baby that you had that grows up and does things and becomes big and then becomes an adult of their own, or you're talking about that intimate partner that you met, or your friends, or your sister, or, because there's always a start of a relationship, regardless of where there's a start. And that starting point is usually rooted in emotion. But I think the choices because like I said, there's going to be something, just to put it in perspective as to what I mean. Let's say you have a sibling that you grew up with and you love them because you have all these life experiences together, and that sibling becomes a drug addict. You don't stop loving that person, but you might separate yourself from that person. But every time you see them, you still love them and you remember all of those experiences you have together. So you still make the choice that they're doing things that I don't agree with, but I'm going to love them too. And if they ever got clean, you almost can, in many cases, pick right back up where you left off because you make a choice to say, I'm going to still love them. So for me, that's, it's a lot for me to kind of explain it, maybe. But the simple definition is that it's something that evolves, that starts in your heart and eventually evolves to your head. And that's when you know you truly love somebody, when you make the choice every day that when you don't like them, I'm going to choose to still love them.
Yeah. I think we're on the same page because
No.
I think of love as like the foundation being like a tree, right? You know, like the trunk of a tree. And
Yeah.
when you said about the different types of love, when you're talking about familial love, when you become a mother, when you develop friendships, when you get into romantic love, they all kind of start as a foundation. Like, I can see why I can love this person. And as time goes on, it kind of like branches out, splinters from that, branches out some more because you learn more about them. Like, even when it comes to I think all of them start off with the foundation. Like, to me, I feel like as a whole, I love people. And I really mean that when I say that. I love people. I think that's why, like, people come up and chat with me and they don't know me. I'd be like, they could feel that I have love for everybody, right? So they'd be like, "Oh yeah, so what you think of this dress?" And you're like, "Do you know that lady?" "No, I don't know. She don't talk to me." But
She
but I
will.
love people, and I think that's my foundation anyways. I already love people. Now, there are ways where it can splinter off and die off, like where I can stop loving someone. But
Hmm.
like, generally, I love people. I love good people. I love
Right.
moral people a lot. And um, for me, I think about that, like, being a kid. I already loved my mom. I don't remember the day I decided to love my mom and my dad. You know what I'm saying? Or my brother and sister. I already had that foundation when I came in there. And then as my brain developed and I got to understand who you guys were, I started to love you for different reasons. And even today, we've been sisters for 37 years, and I still can find things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that about Monique, and it can grow from there. Um, I think when it comes to, my friendships, which is interesting because I really never thought I would have long friendships, but I absolutely have long friendships. All of my friends are best friends to me. Um, it's the same thing. We started that foundation. I can see how we get along, and I totally agree with the whole nervous thing. And it's different than romantic love, but it's a thing where you're like, I don't want to cross. Like, the big thing when you have friendships, you don't want to cross their line. They grew up different from you. You don't know what they'll be offended by. They're a different person than you, but you find them interesting in a way. So you just, finding that boundary. And I think what's great is that having long-term friendships, it's like, or people who kind of vibe with you immediately, you already know I'm not going to offend you. I'm like, oh, I already know.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? You know where I'm coming from. You know, it's all love, even if I said the wrong thing.
Right.
Um, but back to that, I think the foundation is like, it starts there and then you splinter off and branches off to, have more interesting things you love about them. Same thing for romantic love. I think it's infatuation. That's something that, my man always says. He's like, oh, a lot of people would be infatuated. They start out with that
Hmm.
infatuation.
Yeah.
He believes, he says infatuation is actually something that doesn't last, because he's like, a lot of times people who start off with infatuation, they're like really not going to build anything and it just blows up.
Yeah.
And he said infatuation, like, he's like, infatuation could go on for a while too. Like, people could be
Oh,
infatuated
yeah.
for some years and then they realize, oh, that's all I did. I just like that thing about that person. And then they're not that cute anymore to me. Like, they're jerks. And that's what we were talking about too, of like the physical was really like the foundation of it. But that real love, it comes, from seeing the character of that person, especially with romantic love. You get to build on that and say, oh, I understand who they are, who they're not. To explain, like, it's all that foundation is big. Now, yes, it does splinter off and branch off and gets, bigger and grows, but it definitely is huge. Like, from the minute they come out. And it's so instinctual. I don't really connect to people who don't have that instinct to love their child. I don't
I
really know what
don't.
that means. I mean, I think maybe their brain is
I don't
wired
know how you
different,
don't.
but
I
it's
don't know how
instinctual
you
because
don't.
even when your mind is not working right, your heart is like, I love you, you little jerk, but I love you. Um, and then sometimes what's strange is sometimes even the things that are like kind of n- aggravating about that person, that child, is actually something you love about them too. You're like, oh, I love that they can stand up to me when grown people can't stand up to me. You know what I'm saying? I love that
It's
about them in a
true.
way. strangely enough. But,
The stubbornness.
oh yeah, like, ooh, and some of them have it better than other girl. So,
Yes.
yeah, so I think we're on the same page about what we believe love is, but I honestly think that love is something that is like it cannot be defined because everybody has their different way of like defining that, thinking it's happening, thinking it's not happening. It's very
Right.
interesting in that way. So I wanted to get into the culture and society part of love because I think that love like is like the center stage. It seems like even though there's a lot of distractions in the world, like we all kind of center around that we want to be loved. It's something like innate in being a human is that we want to be loved. Sometimes we judge people based on if they are loved. You get what I'm saying? So I think about that a lot of times, and I see this a lot, like, being around women, working around women, is people are interested in who's in a relationship. Do you dating anyone? Are you married? Is your family in town with you, or you live here by yourself? Like people are very interested in that, and I think another way that people look in society and say like, oh, they look at status, but I think there's a love status. When I was thinking and I was kind of researching about this, I was like, I think there's a love status, and I'm not saying that it's unwarranted too, because I find that to be an alarm sometimes when people have no relationships. I'm like, "Ooh, what's going on? Why you don't have a relationship?" And
Yeah.
I'm not talking about romantic. I'm talking about
Yeah.
like they struggle with lots of different types of relationships. So that's why I'm being broad in that and saying that
Yeah.
sometimes there's a little status in being very loved and not being loved at all, and sometimes, like I said, sometimes I think it's warranted. Sometimes it's unwarranted because you don't know their background and what's going on with them, but it's something I found interesting. So I kind of talked about this already, but there's different types of love. Familial love. We talked about that. That's your family who you grew up with, in your house. And everybody has a different set in how their families are, but that is a culture in itself. Like I always believe that your family is its own culture.
For sure.
And what's crazy about having your own family's culture is you believe this is how life should be. So when
Hmm.
someone comes in on the outside, they can look at you and be like, girl, like, that's not how life goes. Like, that's not how life, people
Oh,
don't do that, and it's
yeah.
so foreign to you because you grew up with that, but that's how you learn to love. That's how you learn to view the world. Friendship, love, that touched on that. Romantic love, which is
Yeah.
the one I think that takes like the forefront. Everybody want to know who you dating, who you talking to, girl, because they
Right.
want to know where's it going to go. Oh, question.
I'm
What do
ready.
you think is the differences in like do you have clear differences in your different types of love? Like do you with your family, your friendships,
You mean how
your
I love?
yeah.
Um, I think there are differences as it branches off, but the core of how I love people, for me, it goes back to like the root of what you said, like you love people. I feel like I am a lover of people as well. Um, I love making people feel comfortable when they're with me. I love making sure that the people that are around me feel that I love them and that I care about them and I think they're important. And I think that that is something that transcends all of my relationships, whether it's my family, my friends, my partner. I try to make sure that, my husband knows that when I do something, it is for the good of us, not just me. I try to make sure that things that are important to him, that I take note of those kinds of things. But I also do those things with my child. I know what's important to my child, and I try to take note on those things. I try to make sure that he knows the importance that he holds in my life, because I think in this current world that we're in, sometimes our kids get lost
Mm,
because there is so many, like we've discussed, distractions in the world,
mm,
and I'd never want him, kind of going back to when you said something about that, it made me think the distractions in the world is why I think we're always constantly allowing love to take the forefront. I think because there's so many distractions that people will sometimes look at things and go, well, am I important because I've got 100,000 friends on Facebook, but none of them checked on me when I was sick? Or am I like
Mm,
those kind of things like that? The world that we live in like this now, that's why love is always on the forefront, because people don't realize that the things that they're using a lot of times to fill the void of love, it's not real love. But for me, I try to make sure that my son is never looking out in those kind of horizons for, am I important? That he knows for mom that you're important. I try to do the same thing with my extended family, with my mom, with my dad, with my brother, with my sister, with my nieces and nephews. I try to make sure in the moment, I can't do it because we're not always together, but in the moment when we are together, I try to make sure I'm engaged with them. So I would say and that goes for my friends as well. When we're talking about how I love in that respect, is it the same? That part of it, the foundation of the way I love people is the same. But I do think that as the building or the tree grows up, that the way I love is different. I'm very, very um my husband is a physical touch person. He needs that to feel loved. And so I make sure that I provide him with that. That's not something that I do for everybody else. I make sure, though, that I provide him with that physical touch, and he knows that we are physically connected, and I hold his hand and I do those kind of things to make sure that he knows that I love him. Um, my son is a very much, he says it. So I make sure I say it a lot to him. Very similarly, my dad is someone who says it all the time. And I will say it to my dad all the time. My mom is not, but never questioned her loving us at all. But she's just not a person that's going to say it a lot. And she's also not a very cuddly person, but she'll go out and fist fight somebody for you if she needs to.
and will and do.
And do. I remember being a deputy and she'd be like, oh, I'm like, Mom, you can't fight people when I'm at work. I'm a deputy. Get off me.
Yeah.
I love my mom different than I love, say, my dad. I love my son when I branch, like I said, when it branches off. I will still, when I can see that because he is a boy and he is at an age now where I can't cuddle him like he's a baby anymore. He's big. But there are times where he lets down that little man guard that he has that's come up now. And he will want to snuggle in next to me. And I make sure that I'm open and available for those kind of things. That's not the way I would love somebody that's a friend of mine. If I have a friend though that I try to notice when I feel like my friends are going through something, and I try to tune in to that friend. And that means sometimes my other friends might get pushed on the back burner. But
Mhm.
if that friend needs me, I try to make sure that I'm tuned into that person. So I would say, like I said again, the foundation of how I love people is not different. But I think maybe the way I express it, maybe that's what it is. The way I
Mhm.
express it to each one of them is different.
Yeah.
Did I answer the
I
question?
Yeah, you answered that
Okay.
question. I agree. Honestly, like I said, I have love for everybody. I'm not one of those people who are like, I hate people. Because some people are like, I hate people.
Well,
I
I
have
know
my
some people who are
days.
like that.
I, I have
She
my
has her
days.
hours, y'all. It's at 5 o'clock. She hates people.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at the time. It's around that time.
I
But
know.
I'm a lover of people, but people get different parts of me. One thing I have to say about you is I wanted to circle back to what you were saying about how you make sure that people feel like, you're there for them and they get center stage for you. I love that about you because that's something like sometimes I have to actively balance to make sure everybody knows that like you have meaning, you are important for me in this moment. Um you're really good at that. You always like when someone's going through something, they can call you and you're like, yeah, and you seem interested. You seem like you really care about what they're going through. You seem like you are really, you're really with them. And what's interesting is like when sometimes when they're okay and they don't need you as much, like you don't take it as like that person's not calling me all the time and things like that. And I know I've leaned on you before, like, honey, I've leaned on you before. We talk all the time anyways, but there's been time I had to
Yes.
lean on you. You know what I'm saying? And you let me take that center stage. And so I definitely like that's something that is definitely something that made me feel loved for sure. And that's why I said that's where the branch grew another little twig off the side. I'm like, oh nice. Um yeah, and it's funny because I I'm a people watcher and not just like into the world, which I love to watch people, but I'm
So
saying
do
like
I.
I'm a people watcher with what my family and my friends and them need, you know? I look at them and like, "Oh, I know this is what they need. This is what they want." And like I said, everybody has their different, like, culture that they grew up with and not like, an ethnicity culture. I mean, like, the family culture.
Yeah.
And you got to you see there, like, there's some people where they're just like, "Oh, I mean, I don't need what you need." You know what I'm saying? And I
Right.
said the other day, I was having a conversation with, one of my best friends, and I said, "Oh, something I have to check about myself because sometimes even I'm a very loving person, but that there can be a judgment in that too because I'm like, oh, I just want to hug you when you're hurting, you know."
Right.
And she wasn't, coming at me like that, but she was just like, speaking of a situation, and she's like, "Oh, when I'm stressed out," and she's never told me this, and like, I don't think she was even popping a shot. She's never told me this, but she's like, "Oh, when I'm upset, I don't want to be touched. Like, I need people to give me
Oh,
that space to think and get myself together. I'll come back to you and talk." And what's funny is that she is actually a very loving person, and it's funny because, like, she was just described recently of like having one of the best hugs. Like, she has great hugs. I'm not gonna lie, but she does not like to be touched in a moment of crisis. And I can
oh.
identify with that in a way. Like, I not really because I don't think there really is many times I don't want to be touched. I do. My children can touch me out though. Those are the only people. Like, I work with
Kids can
kids and they will hug me, but they have boundaries. They're like, "Oh, okay, love you," and they move
kids
on.
will outtouch
My
even
own
the best
children,
ones.
they trying to go back where they came from. They like, I'm like, girl, back up, boy, back up.
See, I
Um,
will say, just on a side note on that, I'm not a person, I'm a very, like, I'm fine with hugs and whatever else. I'm great with that. I think part of it too is I've been around a lot of different cultures. So some of my friends, when they greet, they'll kiss on the cheek, that kind of thing like that. Does not bother me. I'm great with that. But right now, I'm in a kindergarten class and these kids will touch me to death.
yeah,
This,
yeah.
you want to know what my button that makes my eye twitch?
Oh,
This.
oh, baby, I don't like that.
Oh, stop touching me.
I don't like when they're calling me at the exact
They
same
do that
time
at the
they're
same
touching me.
time.
Miss,
Miss,
miss.
miss, miss, miss. And I have to say, stop touching me.
Yeah,
I am
I
talking
had
to
to.
someone else right now. That's why I didn't answer you. Like,
Hey,
that's where
you
the
don't need to.
touching, like physical touch. But
Yeah.
that's the only time it stresses me out.
Hmm. I concur. I say the same thing. I don't
I
like
love
that.
them. I love them. I want to squeeze all their little faces. They're adorable. They're all so cute in their own little ways. But I'm like, stop touching me.
Mm. Now I will agree with you. But my own children kick it up another notch.
Do they?
I won't say that I was always affectionate with my kids. Even when, like, mentally I didn't really even had it all together. I always was affectionate with my kids. Now, the one thing I always preach to them because I wanted them to have boundaries with their body is learning to accept no to a touch and also um being able to say no,
That's
and it's funny because
huge.
my kids, what's funny is that I don't think they ever really didn't want a hug, but they always wanted to test that out with me to see if I would be angry about that. And they're like, "I don't want a hug." And I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, "No, mommy, I really do." Like, I do. I was just seeing what you'd say. Like, you know what I mean?
I'm
Kind
going
of
to
like
say
that
it's
thing.
okay.
But it's okay. I never have an
Yeah.
issue with that. But
That was
it
something
was,
big that we taught our kids, and I love that
yeah,
because I took
yeah.
that from you and taught that to my son too. Um, sometimes he doesn't at this age for some reason he doesn't seem to care about boundaries. When it comes to he'll just walk out from the shower, Ma. I'm like, please go boundaries. Put a house coat on, put a towel on, and he always says, "You birthed me." That's what he says. You
That's
birthed me.
it's not always the most comfortable, but I think that is the ingredients of a safe house. When your
Yes,
child feels okay to be naked, or you say,
I don't
"Hey,
care.
player, put on some clothes," but they okay with it. They're like, "Oh,
You
what's
birthed
the worst
me.
that can happen?" You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They don't know how it could get, but um,
It's so crazy.
yeah. But back to what I was saying. So my best friend was
Yes.
saying that she was like, I don't want to be touched
Yeah.
in a moment of crisis and when I'm frustrated, whatever. And I said,
That's
"Oh,
interesting.
that's something like, you know what I mean? Like it was, I said, that's a light bulb to myself because that
Mhm.
gives me like, I have to check myself because that's my go-to. I'm
Right.
immediately, oh my God, you're crying. Let me hug you. Let me hold you. Some people
Yeah.
respond well to that. And some people are like,
Yeah.
okay, that's enough, you know? But it's funny because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I've grabbed and hugged her before. And I don't know if she's taken it either way. But I was like, it's interesting. I said, I
Yeah.
have to learn to support in another way. I got to love you
Yeah.
in a different way. Like, not
Mhm.
that she has anything against hugs, but in
No.
that moment of crisis, you know what I'm saying? I
Right.
had to support you in the right way where you can receive that. But I digress. Um, so have you ever thought about people who actively have to make the choice to choose which of those loves in their life, which type of love is paramount in their life? And why would they have to choose that? Have you ever thought about like, like I said, we have familial, friendship love, romantic love, and not everybody has the same foundation, right? And when these people have to choose and say, this is the most important love in my life, have you ever thought about like why that would happen or, what circumstances would make someone feel that way? Or do you connect to that at all?
Um, I don't connect with it on the friendship part of it because I love my friends, but I can't think of a time that I would allow them to be paramount over my family or my intimate partner. Now, I do understand having to make um, a decision about the love for my intimate partner trumps familiar love, and here's where I mean. There's another podcast I listen to, and it's a therapist guy, and he talks to people. It's like a call in kind of like show. And people will call in and they'll talk about they have a relationship with their parents that is toxic for their now family because now they're adults
Mhm,
and they're married and they have their own children and their parents haven't learned how to love them as adults. And I feel like
mhm.
in most cases, they're still wanting to run their lives and their spouse is saying, I cannot accept your mother or your father coming to my home and disrespecting me like this or doing this or saying this to our children or doing this with our children or telling me how to raise our children or whatever it may be. And it comes a point where that spouse has to make a determination to say which love is going to trump here. And I feel like in those cases, obviously, if you're married with children and things like that, that does have to take the priority. If your parents haven't learned how to love you as an adult and take a back seat to your now life, that's a problem. And you do have to then learn how to say, I'm going to prioritize my new life, which is going to be with my intimate partner and my family. This is my immediate family now. And then prioritize you below that. And sometimes that's very difficult because with making that priority shift, some families don't recover. Like it's very
Yeah.
sad to say, but there are some parents in real life that I know of, and then just in general, in listening to the show, that have walked away from their children, walked away from their grandchildren, walked out of their lives because they feel like they can't control the situation, that they don't want to be part of it. And I think that is a time where you do have to take and, as an adult, say, I have to prioritize my family above this part of my family. And so I could see that happening where you prioritize like that. And I think, in all honesty, it has to be done that way. And the hope is, as a parent, that you can recognize that your child hits a point where they're adults. And if you're not paying their bills, and I always use that as the reference point for adulthood. Adulthood is not 18. Adulthood can transition until I start paying your bills. If you're in college and I'm still paying for you to go to college and eat and do all these things, you're not grown. I still need to see your report card every semester because I'm
I
paying
know that's
bills.
right.
Because I'm not paying for somebody who's making D's and F's. I'm sorry, you need to get a job, player. But clock it. But if your child is on their way, you have reared them, you cannot continue to raise them into adulthood. So you have got to let them marry who they want to marry. Sometimes that is hard. You have got to let them raise their children the way they see fit. And you've got to step back and just fall into that new role for you, which is you are a friend to your child once you're no longer paying their bills and you are a grandparent to to their children. You're not the parent. And sometimes if you can't fall in line with those kind of roles, you end up having to have that which one do I choose? Which one do I choose? And you might not like what they choose. Sometimes it does work where the person will choose their family, but that still doesn't always work out because it leaves this person in a place where they don't ever they don't ever create a space where that person can find love, because now I'm worried about what my parents are going to approve of, or if they're going to like this person. So they end up spending a lifetime alone. Or you separate a family. If this person has kids and things like that, now you got this person that's, yeah, they landed on mom and dad's side, but their children are somewhere else with their spouse or what. It just creates a space where those kinds of times like that, that's the only time that I can see in my head and identify with someone having to make a choice as to which love is going to trump and be the most important.
Yeah. I think that people have to make that choice when one of them is unhealthy, when one of those types of loves is unhealthy. So,
For sure.
um, not everybody grows up in it. And I feel like we're lucky in a sense. And I especially sit there and notice like how my family has always been like paramount. Honestly, it got me through my toughest times being growing up and everything. Cause I'm like, well, at least my family loves me. Like even if everything is shit, my family loves me. That's it. So I had that foundation, and then having, choosing friends who definitely at this point in my life still love me unconditionally. Having a romantic relationship where he integrated with my family very easily. Everybody loved him, with no issue. And I, same thing, moved into his family with no issue. So I never had like the in-law thing and whatever.
Yeah.
But sometimes people have a bad foundation, that bad familial love from the get-go. And they're like,
Yeah.
when I grow up and I become a bill payer and nobody's paying my bills anymore, like you said, I am not talking to these fucking people.
Ever.
Like, they're done.
Yeah.
So, and I've heard those stories. So I think
Yeah.
that when those are not healthy, you have to choose what's paramount. When you find your romantic partner and they are the right thing for you and they're healthy for you, you're gonna have to
Yeah.
be like, mute down the family love. Friendships can step in and be family for you sometimes. So especially if it's good. And I think that like we have a lot, like my friends have become family. So we have a
Yeah.
lot of people who are around where it's like I like my best friends and stuff, we call our children to each other, they're cousins. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like it does still feel like family, but sometimes you
Right.
have to build those type of relationships because one of them is unhealthy. And if you have an unhealthy romantic relationship, you're gonna need somebody to save you from that situation sometimes. So it's sometimes you just gotta figure out which one.
I think too, friendships, that's something else that can be unhealthy. And it's important to then prioritize, even if it's a long friendship, you prioritize other relationships, whether it's other friends, your family, your intimate partner. And the reason I say that is I'm a lover of people. I take people as they are. A lot of my friends are very different than me. And I don't, if someone says, I want to be your friend until they do something that makes me not want to be theirs, we're on board with that. But I
Right.
have had friends in the past that have almost felt like challenged by my relationships with other friends or
Mm-hmm.
challenged by my relationship with my spouse. And to
Mm.
me, anytime I have a friend that has those things going on, that to me is not a relationship that I am interested in entertaining, because while I am one of those people that definitely wants people to feel seen and heard, and I want to make sure that if you're going through something that I'm prioritizing you in that moment, you're
Mm-hmm.
not always going to be my priority. And if I
Amen.
have to prioritize at any point in time my son or my husband, that's going to take front stage, even if you're in a situation sometimes, because that is my immediate concern at all times. Um, and I've had friends that have almost challenged that. And as a result, they've gotten pruned right out of the tree. That's what happens. And with no regard and with no remorse, because I know, for me, I know how I did show you love. And if you did not, you took that as um, something where there were no boundaries for you, then that was on you to have done what you did. So that's where I would say we touched on being like having to prune out maybe families, having to prune out significant others, but there are friends sometimes that you got to prune out because they want to challenge every other love that you have in your life. And that's not okay or good either.
Amen. Let the church say amen. Okay. Definitely I've been in that situation, and sometimes it's a really hard choice because it's similar to a breakup in a sense where you're just like, you have to
Yeah.
decide, do you want this person in your life still? Are they, feeding something in you, or are they killing something in you?
Yeah.
So it's true, and I think sometimes too, especially nowadays, I think like people are prioritizing their friendships, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But sometimes like they got to know when to get out of it. Like you got to know when
Hmm.
to get out of it. Just like a relationship with a romantic partners, just like when you notice with family,
Yeah.
there's some people who are there to use you. There's some people who are there to make sure they live on top of you in a sense where they're just like, oh, they want to something to make themselves feel better. Sometimes they always have
Yeah.
something, they're contrarian with you, they
Yeah.
always have something that they're, having an issue with you about, and it ain't
Right.
worth it. Mm-mm.
Mm-mm. Life's too short.
Um, do you think so? Love in media. I feel like sometimes media makes like manipulates us with love. Like, like I think that there are so many trends in a sense that kind of start, and there's so many ways where like just like Valentine's Day, and it's not the fact that nobody shouldn't get you nothing for Valentine's Day, but like shouldn't love be shown all the time? And then
Hmm.
like there's always like, oh, there's a sale for Valentine's, there's so we kind of talked about that during the New Year's episode.
Yeah.
um but yeah, there's like always like a little like, oh, do you really love her? Give her a big ass diamond, you know?
Right.
Like, and
Say I
it's
love you
weird.
with De Beers. Sorry, don't come for me, De
Exactly.
Beers.
Don't come for us. Okay.
Don't come.
But yeah, and it's interesting because some people will get a part of that marketing or a part of that like brainwashing. And I've heard people say like, oh girl, I saw her engagement ring. Can you believe that small ass ring he got her? And I was
Right.
like, well, damn, you don't think that, I
Hey,
mean, he loved her or she
he
loved him.
loves
You know what I'm
her.
saying? What's that about?
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. You got any thoughts on that?
I think that the media has sold love like you would not believe. Valentine's is a completely contrived holiday. It is solely to make money. I will tell you, probably about now it's been like 8 or 9 years ago, me and my husband stopped buying stuff for each other on Valentine's Day. And we
Okay.
said, okay, we're going to celebrate it, but we're going to celebrate it with experiences. But that's what we do all year long too. Like we like to
Mm-hmm.
go on vacation. We like to go places. We like to go to restaurants, and we just
Mm-hmm.
make that another day that we do it because it's carved out. That's the only reason why we go on Valentine's Day, because it's very deliberate, carved out time that the world creates space for. And so we're like, oh, let's make sure that we try something new. And I will tell you, the
Yeah.
cool thing is when we started doing that, man, to me, Valentine's Day was so much cooler. We have
Right?
done some, like, my husband booked Valentine's Day one time for us at Busch Gardens where we would eat with animal encounters. Um, I, I never told you that,
That's
girl.
right. I know that's
He
right.
did.
I don't remember
He
that one
booked
not
another
that
one where we were at the aquarium and we ate
too.
next to the giant aquarium and had sharks swimming next to us while we ate dinner. Um, we have done, we, I think one Valentine's Day, we did a chicken sandwich challenge. We just drove around town buying chicken sandwiches. And then we went to a park and sat down and we were like sampling and we're like, nope, that one's not good. we just,
I
we do the funniest, nicest, most fun things now that we took off the pressure of we need to buy chocolate and roses and diamonds and this and like, to me, Valentine's is so contrived. It's insane to me because I think, and it's really laughable now because another thing that we'll do is if where we want to go is not available on Valentine's Day, we'll go out the night before or the night after. It doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
I jokingly tell my husband all the time, this is side chick day, right?
I
And
forgot
so
about that, yeah.
we will go out the day before, the day after. I'll be like, everybody thinks I'm here, that he's here with this side chick. So, but because it doesn't, you should, if you love somebody, your everyday, that's where I say it goes back to what is love. Your everyday choices should align with loving that person. And it should not have to be, I'm going to treat you like crap all year long, 364 days, but Valentine's Day, I'm going to turn it on. Maybe Valentine's Day, Christmas, your anniversary, and their birthday. Like,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
should not turn it on just those 4 days. So for
Mm-mm.
me, I think that that is definitely something the media has pushed, even to the point of, if you look at when romantic comedies come out and romantic movies come out, they come out surrounded around Valentine's Day or holidays or that kind of thing. Like, those are the times where they really want to sell you the love side of it. You do see the diamonds commercials kick up because right now, between February, I think in like April is the season when everybody gets engaged. So they're pushing the diamonds, they're pushing all those things. And I feel like if someone wants to propose to someone with a deed for a plot of land, that to me has the same significance as you putting a diamond on somebody's ring, because it's still committing. And to me, it has more, because if I'm saying I'm proposing you with a deed to a piece of land, I'm committed to building something with you. A
Mm.
diamond doesn't say that. A
Amen.
diamond has its significance. And I will say that I'm not trying to be hypocritical. I wear a ring. I have a diamond that my husband gave me. But if my husband
Mhm.
would have proposed to me with a plot of land, I would have been like, let's do this. We have to not get sucked into what the picture of love looks like based on media, because it's not realistic. If we look at what they put on television, the romantic comedy television shows, the romantic movies, they're not real. That's not how people
Mm.
interact. People
Mm.
interact in relationships that are imperfect. There are bumps in the road. There are arguments. There are discussions. There are disagreements. There are hard times, and they happen way more than you think. And to me, if you go into it with the right mindset of, I have always told my husband, I love living life with you. That means when I'm like, hey, money's tight. I don't know how I'm gonna make these ramen noodles. I'm gonna whip them up. I'm gonna make something special with them, and we're gonna call it a night. I love doing that with him as much as I love going to the aquarium and sitting next to a giant aquarium and eating dinner. And that's where people need to realize that is what love really is. And when we're looking for what we see on the media, yeah, the media has sold us that. You have to be aware and abreast of the fact that that is something they're selling. And you can intake it. You can watch those movies. You can enjoy them even. And then you can walk out of the theater and know that that's not real life.
Yeah, that's funny because I didn't even think about like the fantasy of it all. I think definitely media has created it's a double-edged sword because I think media in the way of like watching a movie and watching what these social media influencers say that their husbands and wives are doing and how they're so perfect.
Right.
It has set some unrealistic goals on like
For sure.
how you're supposed to run a relationship in the sense. But I do think that there's some people who are more honest or some people who talk about their struggles. And it's given people like one of my other best friends was talking about how like she's like, oh, sometimes the game plan is on social media. If you see a dude, he's like, oh yeah, my wife, I didn't have to do nothing special. I just cleaned up the kitchen for her. You're like, baby, that's all you needed to do. That's all I needed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
So
all I needed.
sometimes you'll see like, the balance of that, but there is a lot of unrealistic things. And like I like watch unrealistic things, but I don't
Yeah.
connect them to my life all the time. Like,
No.
yes, I would want to be treated in a way where it's like, oh, I'm the woman in your life. That's who you notice. That when it comes to like thinking that it's gonna be like made in Manhattan or something like that, I'd be like,
Right.
it ain't gonna be like
Mm,
that. You know what I'm saying? It ain't
no.
like that.
No.
I wanted to get into the thing that everybody like to talk about. Love languages.
Oh boy. Yes.
Love languages.
Yes.
People have that could be a hot take too. It's not a hot take for me. I mean, I could see where it is, but some people don't like to even hear about it. They're like, la 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 la, that's so dumb. Like, like I'm like, it has its point.
It
But
absolutely
so
has its point. But you have to be
So,
realistic with the point it makes.
right.
I digress.
So, the love languages, if you don't know, and you
Yes.
probably know unless you're a nerd rock. Um,
I'm
um,
out from under my rock. Tell me about it.
exactly. So it's words of affirmation, acts of service, gift giving or receiving, quality time, and
Mhm.
physical touch.
Yes.
Um, what are your love
Love
languages?
languages? I can
Mhm.
tell you. Fancy this. Me and my husband actually read the book together, and that's how I figured out what his love language was. When I say I do think it has some value, I just think you have to be realistic to know if it's not your love language, that communicating in that way might be a little more work for you, but it
Mhm.
is doable. And it's not something on the other flip side of it that they're going to be able to do all the time because it's not their love language.
Mhm.
That's another kind. My love language is quality time and acts of service. I love spending time with people. I like people watching and people interacting. So for me, that's why quality time is one of the things for me. Acts of service, because I always feel like you can buy me stuff. That's easy. Um, you can tell me you love me. That's also easy because my mom used to always tell me you can make your mouth say anything. Um, Physical touch, I don't mind physical touch, but I'm also not one that I've never felt starved for physical touch, probably because I did grow up in a house with my dad who would hug everybody. Everybody. I remember my brother getting to be like a teenager. He was a big dude. And my dad, come here, baby, when he's at school with his friends, or, dad waking up, come here, baby, let me give you a hug. Like he did not ever ration his hugs. So I think for me, having that dad love like that. It was never anything, physical touch was not anything I ever felt starved for. So I am good with it. I am very comfortable with it, but I don't feel starved for it. So for me, quality time, like I said, I am a lover of spending time with people. I want to listen to you. I want to talk to you. I want to know what your thoughts are. If we're watching a television show, I want to ask you, why did you think they did that? What are your thoughts? Who do you think's going to win? Like, I want to have that kind of interaction with people. And an act of service to me, if you can do something that you don't not like to do, but you do it out of just, I want to help Monique and make her life easier, that to me is like, oh, you do care. You know, like my husband won me over back in the day when we were dating. I'm somebody who's always enjoyed working out. It's very calming for me. It relaxes me at the end of the day, et cetera, et cetera. My husband used to come home and he'd go run with me. He didn't like running, but he would run with me. And that to me just was like, he loves me, because he's doing this just to spend time with me. So he was doing the quality time and the active service in one fell swoop. So for me, or there are certain things that I like to do. Like I love to cook. So for me, I don't want anybody to take that off my plate. But I hate toilets. Ugh. I don't like to do anything with them. So if my husband cleans my toilets, I'm like, oh, I love him. He's so sweet. But I know he doesn't like doing it either, but he does it solely because he knows how much I despise it. So an act of service will go a long way with me, and quality time, just like I love holiday time when we as a family, I just flourish. I feel like as a flower, even though it's in the winter time, even though my sister doesn't think anything grows in the winter, I feel like I just open up like a beautiful bloom.
Mm. Yeah. I'm cozy with myself. No, I'm joking.
You're so stupid. Ah,
I will say,
what are
I think there's a
yours?
difference in the way that I give love and receive love. There's a little bit slight changes. So the way I receive love is quality time and physical touch. That's the way, like, I will know, like, oh, you want to spend time with me, you want to be with me, you love me. If another thing, and like mine was the opposite. We grew up with the same dad. Daddy was a hugger. I loved that for him. And I always knew when I was a kid, I was like, oh, I need a hug. Oh, where's my dad?
Where's my
Dad.
dad
I could do that today. Like at
today?
37,
Daddy,
I
I
could be
need a
like,
hug.
Dad, can
Baby,
I
I'm on my
hug
way
you?
right now. He
Yeah,
gonna
okay.
drive there too.
Oh, okay, baby. And when
Okay.
I walk in there, I just hug dad, and it's funny because we're very close to mom, very
Yes.
close. But I don't always shoot to try to hug her. If I
Nope.
do, it's trying to bother her in a way.
It's just to bother her.
But again, like you said, never was it like a word, like, oh, does mom love me? Like that never
Mm-mm.
crossed my mind. It just wasn't her way. So that's definite. Like for me, like my dad, him hugging me that much made me feel like when people love me, they're gonna hug me and
They're
hold
gonna
me like
hug
that,
me.
you know? And I
That's
still
so
think
cool.
like I say to dad, like, he has like the type of hugs that can put my pieces back together. So like when I feel like
Oh,
out of sorts, I'm like, and dad hugging me, I'm like, oh, I'm back together for a while, like a puzzle piece.
oh,
So,
that's so sweet.
yes, I love physical touch and I love quality time. Now, how I give love, I love to give love with physical touch, love to give love with quality time, but also I love to give gifts. That is something
Oh,
like, honestly, like I was thinking on this when we were doing this together. I'm like, all the people I love, and I mean everybody. I wish I was rich enough to retire everybody out. Like,
oh,
that would be, and I wouldn't want nobody to be like, oh, Kasha, thank you. I wouldn't even want that. I would just love to see everybody be able to relax. Like, if I could give that to everybody,
oh,
I would love that. So that's my way. And I never give gifts with the expectation that someone has to give me something back. Like, even Christmas times, I have a running list on who I wants to give something. But I don't even think about who gave me anything. Like I remember we were talking at work and, the other teachers were like, oh yeah, I think this parent gave me this. And I was like, oh, I don't even know who gave what. Like there's a couple people, like I actively told them thank you, but it was never like somebody that piqued in my mind that I didn't give me a gift. Like I couldn't figure out who it was that didn't give me a gift because that doesn't like
right.
register to me in my head. But giving, I'll give all day and I don't care about the receiving part. Um, but yeah. So, um,
I
go ahead.
didn't tell how I give love or show love. Um, I will say, uh, selfishly, I typically will give love with trying to spend time with people, and with trying to do acts of service. But I have learned since I've read the book, the thing that I took away from it is learning um other people's love languages and trying to meet them where they're at. So it allowed me, like I told you, I like to make people feel seen and heard. It's allowed me to kind of tune in more to listen to what that person needs. Like I know I have a friend of mine, she's very physical touch. So I know if she's in a time of crisis, I will hug her because I know that's something that she really, really needs to feel loved and those kind of things. So, but I had to learn, like with my husband, in my head, dumb me, thinking he's a dude. He don't care about holding hands and me rubbing him or hugging him or telling him, like rubbing his face or like, and I've realized now because I do actively say you need to in my head, if I run my hands through his hair and just stroke his hair or stroke his head, he'll just melt. I'll watch him do that. So I do try to now be more in tune with loving people the way that their love language allows them to feel seen and heard.
Yeah, and that's important too, because I could say that for Terrence, I think that he definitely wants to see the acts of service. And I definitely see on his end that he is more of an acts of service person and words of affirmation. Definitely,
Okay.
he wants to hear like, hey, did you notice I did that? And, it doesn't always compute in my head, but I need to work on that in that sense. So going back to familial love and the different types of love. So speaking on familial love, growing up, you are learning that's like your foundation. You're learning to love. And like I was telling you about the cultures, you notice like when you meet people and that's romantic or otherwise, you sometimes I think you know how they need love. And then it changes as it grows, like you think you have it all down pat. Like you just said, you were like, oh, he's a dude. He doesn't need all that physical touch. You didn't like compute in the fact of like, oh, wait a minute, but he actually does.
Right.
Um, and it's funny because to me, like I said, what you don't grow up with and you're not exposed to is very foreign to you. So you get to the
Yeah.
point where you're in your dating life and your friendships and things like that. You are handling people in the way that you've always been taught until somebody's like, hey, that's not what I need or that's not normal.
Right.
Um, So I think that that's interesting too. That's like an interesting angle, like how families starting off, um, it teaches you how to love.
Yeah.
But the other set, when you start your own family, like we talked about
Hmm.
that earlier too, um, it's like, how do you teach love? Because again, just like your romantic partner, your children have a different love language as well. Um,
Yeah.
Not my kids. Their physical touch for sure. Like, for sure. But you still need to learn your kid and figure out like what they need, because sometimes like those things can go over your kid's head, that you hugged them a bunch, but they were like, oh, every time I showed you, a drawing, you kind of overlooked that, that meant
Yeah.
something to them. So how do you teach love to your child?
I think the beauty of and that's where, it takes two people to create that kid, because it's a blending of the personalities and experiences. I feel like for me, the way we've taught our son to love has come from two different ways. And I think what happens is he takes a little bit from dad, he's taking a little bit from mom, and he's putting it together to create what love is in his brain. So I think that when you are teaching your kid, it's almost unintentional or accidental. I won't say
Mm-hmm.
accidental because there is some intention behind it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not something that is an act of like I'm going to teach you your ABCs. This is how
Mm.
you draw the letter A. It's not, because there's a long period when the impression of love is only computed for a child through how we care for them. So I think it starts out, especially that first year and a half, when there's not much words. You might be saying it. They don't understand the words you're saying. What they understand is how they feel when you pick them up. They understand
Yeah.
how it feels when you look in their eyes when you're giving them that bottle. They understand what it feels like when they lay on your chest when they're first born, and they can feel your heart and their heart almost in sync. Um, those are the things that I feel like that teach love. I'm not going to make you cry this time. They
Okay.
teach love, because I think by the time our children are hitting 4 and 5, they have a definition of love. They may not be able to say it, but I think love has already been defined for them. So if you haven't taught your child from birth to that about 5 year age mark, and really I think it could be younger, they're not going to understand it. It's going to be a constant, them spending the rest of their life trying to look around and grasp and grab what they think is love, because it's now going to be done just on what they've seen externally with their eyes. Well, this is what I saw mom do with boyfriend, or this is what I saw mom do with dad, or this is what I saw dad do with girlfriend, or this is what I saw dad do with wife or mom. So that must be what love is. So I got to find something that looks like that. If from the time they're young, they have felt it, because that's how love is taught, through that feeling that occurs when you care for them, when they're crying in the middle of the night and you come and you pick them up
Mm-hmm.
and you comfort them and you change them out of their wet diapers. Those are not just things to do. Those are truly acts of love. Now, do they interpret it as being an act of service? Um, do they interpret it as physical touch? I think they interpret all of those, because you're touching them,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing that act of service, you are giving them words of affirmation, because as parents, we talk to them even though they don't fully understand. They don't understand the words, but they understand the tone of, you're okay, baby, you're all right.
Mm-hmm.
They understand that. So that is when love is taught, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think that's true. It's funny because I feel like I struggle because sometimes I'm like, I'm fussing with the kids and stuff like that. So I'm like, oh, are they computing this as I don't love them? And I check in with them a lot, and I'll ask them like, do you feel like I love you? And do you feel loved? And they always like easily, oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know. Especially the girl. The girl's always like, oh yeah, duh. Like, no, I can't fuss at her enough. I'll be like, put that there and sit down and do this. And she's like, can I hug you? Like in the middle of you going off. You could be going off and she's like, and can I have a kiss? Okay, I hear you, mom, but can I have a kiss? I'm like, oh my. Like, she wears on me. I'm like, girl. But yeah, I have to check in with them a lot. And I feel like because I'm like, I want to make sure that I'm doing that. And my kids, like I say, physically, they always going to be like, yeah. I'm like, oh. But, um,
I think that too, because I've seen kids that have had, whatever their foundation was, and then they get older and maybe their parents aren't as loving or aren't giving them what they need. And instead of that kid being like, I don't care if they love me, they
mhm,
immediately try to do whatever they think is going to get that connection back with their parents. And
yeah,
that's what makes me think that what they felt was love happened way before, because at 4 or
yeah,
5 they're trying to gain it back. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Because unfortunately there's awful stories where parents are really great until kids start to get older and they're talking and they're disagreeing and they're doing things that happens with every child, and all of a sudden they fall out of love with their kids and they start treating them differently. But that kid is typically always, and it doesn't, when I say they're always seeking attention, sometimes it's negative attention because they just want that parent to look at them, but they're still looking for that because they're looking for that feeling that they had when they were small and that person picked them up and looked in their eyes. And I think that that is the feeling that transcends throughout our lives that makes us feel loved or not loved. And that's how
yeah,
it's taught to our children.
yeah.
Yeah.
We touched on friendship love too.
Yes.
But what I think is unique about friendship love is, and I talked about this with my friends, is that it's kind of it's interesting because these people just choose you, right?
Yeah.
Like they just chose to be around you. And a lot of times there's no obligation. Like when you're family, there's like an obligation of like, oh, I have my role in the family that I have to do. When you're a romantic partner, same thing. There's a role you have to play. What's interesting about friendship is that there's no role you typically have to play. Like you can just be friends with them and go places
Yeah.
with them or not go,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Or you're like,
Or
hey, you come
not.
over my house, we can watch something.
Yeah.
You just share space. So I don't know. I find that to be really interesting because like I said, I have these long friendships that 20 plus year friendships. And I'm just like, huh, like, why y'all wanted to be hang out with me?
Yeah.
And I want to hang out with you too. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
it's sometimes I notice, and when I do go out with my friends, it's like the pressure is off. And I think like it's like because everywhere else there's obligation. Around at work there's obligation. The kids need stuff from me, and yes, there's deep love with that, and
Of
the man
course.
needs stuff from me. Deep love there. But when I'm with my friends, I'm like, oh, these people choose me, like actively choose me, and they don't need nothing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I find that to be a really interesting like angle apart of friendship love. You,
That's the
you have
uniqueness.
thoughts?
That's the uniqueness of friendship love, because you can stop it at any point. There's no ties. You don't have to go through a divorce. You don't have to untangle your finances. It's just you can walk away clean from someone if you no longer want to be friends. But especially when you choose those long-term relationships. And I have a couple of very long-term friendships. I have one friend that I have known since I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And that's over 40 years that we have under our belt. And we don't talk every day, but we talk often enough. And when we talk, it's like we did talk every day. You know, she doesn't come to my house every day. I don't necessarily go to hers every day, but she knows if she needed me to come to her house right now, I would drop everything and come there. And I know the same for her. If I called her and was like, I need you here, she would do the same thing. I have another friend that I've been friends with since middle school. And then I have another friend that I met when I was in high school. And the beauty is we have gone through a ton of ups and downs. All of us have been, um, had children, had long-term relationships that fell apart. Some of us have been married and then divorced and then married again. We have had kids. We've had financial strife. We've had all these things, job changes, moving. One of my friends during our friendship lived in Japan for a while, and we still made the choice to foster that relationship. So I think it's very interesting when you have not the person that you meet at your job and when you leave that job you never talk to them again. The people that you keep in your life for that long term, the ones that are still in the, I always say, like, there's different levels of your life. There's some people that get the balcony seats, some people get mezzanine, and some people get orchestra level.
Mm,
So your people who have been in your life for a long time are typically your orchestra level people, and they've seen it, they've been there, and they still are there for the entirety of the show. And I say that not to sit back and watch your life, but they are there to support, to applaud, to tell you, keep going, you're doing great, to yell to you on stage that that's what's going on, and vice versa. Those things are such beautiful evolutions because I think it is one of the closest things you can get to a family, that when that person does something great, like my friend that I've known since I was 5, she now has a daughter who's grown, who happens to be my goddaughter. And she has now had 2 of her own children, my goddaughter in that respect, which is her daughter. And when she sends me pictures of the babies, I'm like, oh, it's like they're mine, because that's the importance that she has been assigned in my life. And I know that, like, when I had my child, she was the same way. It was like, I just want to hold him. I just want to be like, what do you need? Like, and it was truly genuine. I have other friends that I've met through my career that I've also maintained. But it's funny, I have about 3 friends that I took through life with me. From my career path of being a cop, I got about 3 or 4 friends that I took from there with me that have been through all kinds of stuff with me. There are people that I pop in and talk to, but there's 3 or 4 that have come along the rest of this ride with me. Now in my new phase of life, there's people that I could see maybe could then add to that pack. But at the same time, if they don't, I'm okay with these 2 groups of long-term friends that I have that have come along in life with me and created that uniqueness, like you said, of just choosing to stay around when things weren't good, when things were rough, when I was crying, when I wasn't always fun to be around, because that is what to me is the mark of a long-term friendship, is when it's not fun to be around me, where are you at?
I think that when you were saying about choosing who's on the balcony and mezzanine and such, Dad used to always say, choose your front row. And so he's like, you got to be careful about who you choose to be in your front row, because not everybody is going to cheer for you. And thankfully, like I said, we've chosen some good people that will be in our front row and always cheer us. And I really do feel like I have unconditional love for my friends. I think I would have to bump my head and do something absolutely insane for them to lose like friendship with me because
Right,
we're that locked in. We locked in, you know what I'm
right.
saying? But yeah, and I feel like I chose my front row really well. I already had my family in my corner, and then
Yeah,
I chose some really good friends.
yeah,
Um, so I know we've been chit chatting, but I want to get into
we
this.
have.
Okay.
Yes,
So the road to romantic love, okay?
yes,
Um, meeting, like it's different than it was in the past. Um,
very much so.
Back in the day, you would be set up. I mean, I was set up. You would meet through
You
family and
were.
friends. Yeah, my best friend actually introduced me. Um, or you would be randomly in the same place, which is it's so frowned upon nowadays. They don't
Ugh,
like that.
it's
Like
so
if
frowned
somebody came
upon.
up to you and was like, "Hey," you know what I'm saying? And I didn't done that, you know what I'm saying, in my past. I was like, "Excuse me, sir. You're a good looking
I
dude.
have
What's
too.
up?" You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
what's
What's
up
up?
with you?
And I know
What's
that's
your
like a little
business?
forward for a lady, but I wasn't out in the streets. I was
I
not
wasn't
for
in
the
the streets
streets.
doing it.
Was not for the streets. But you know what I'm saying? I seen
No.
somebody from afar. I watched how he moved a little bit, and I was like, hey,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? You
What
got a little thing,
you got
thing.
some
What's up?
swag. What's up with you?
And I ain't mind a man coming to me and be like, what's up, girl? I'm like,
Not
hey,
at
how you
all.
doing? What's up?
Not at
But
all.
it's very
So much
different.
respect for the men who did that.
hmm Um, and I understand too, being in the same environment, you work together, you go to school together,
Right?
you frequent a same area. It's so different now because I think that now, I mean, it is very zoned into the apps, like zoned
Yes.
in. You know what I'm saying? If you ever have to get on these streets again, you got to
I
get on the
can't.
app.
I
And
can't get on the streets.
you can, yeah,
I don't want to swipe. I don't want to look at your profile. I don't want to do any of that stuff.
yeah,
No.
and that's like I said, in the romantic love. And it doesn't even, it's interesting because I think they thought that the having those apps and such was going to
Ugh.
clear out the BS.
It doesn't. The BS
Mm-mm.
is elevated.
You know what I'm saying? I love to hear a good bad story about Tinder. You know what I'm saying?
Ugh.
Tinder don't come for me either, but
No, Tinder don't.
I love to hear a bad story about a dating app where they be like, yeah, girl. And then his mama put her shoe on the table. What? What are you talking about? He wouldn't even take me on a date. Our date was at their dining room table. It was crazy, girl. Like, I want to hear that,
Bro,
but I just don't want to live
that's what
through
I'm saying.
that.
I don't have any kind of interest in that. I
Yeah,
would
and
prefer the guy who walks up to me in the grocery store and is like, "Hey, Miss Lady,
they don't
I
do
want
that
to
no
just
more.
tell you that you're beautiful. I don't know, are you single?" And if I say yes, oh, I mean, no disrespect, but I would love to get your number. So much respect for that. I do not want to swipe Tinder, not one time.
They don't like that nowadays. Y'all can correct me if
Mm-mm.
I'm wrong in some comments somewhere and get on the
Go
TikTok and
ahead.
tell us and say, no, you lying. But they don't like that no more. They don't like all that,
No.
coming up to them, chit chatting
There
and
are
all that different kind of stuff. They're
so
like, oh
many
my God,
apps
who is
too.
this? Who are
I
you, sir? Why are you up here talking to me? I didn't
First of
mind
all,
it back in the day.
I had no idea how many apps there were. I still don't, but like somebody will mention one, and I'll be like, "What is that?" And they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you don't even know. It's da 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 da." Like I just recently, like probably a year ago, heard about Grinder. I was like, "This is crazy,
Oh, girl, I don't think that's even more
oh,
than a dating app, girl. They be cutting
crazy."
up,
They
which all of them be
cutting
cutting
up.
up, but they be
They
cutting up.
do.
Cause that
It's
grinder is, you know what I'm saying?
insane,
The dudes want to meet the dudes and they say, hey man, you know what I'm saying? You ready? Like, let go over there
crazy.
quickly.
Never heard of it.
Yeah. Which brings me to my next point about
Yes,
dating.
yes.
Dating rules is different because like I said, like people now are they're starting off on the app. For me, like I said, I was never for the streets. You know what I'm saying?
Never.
I, I've
Even when I
I've
was
been
single.
in the streets. I'm not of the streets. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Like,
no.
but
I was standing on the sideline looking.
yeah, I was like, oh, I see that street. But it's different because I think that like the whole idea of like when sex is introduced and things, and I think we always, oops, sorry, but we've always had like, I think people try to act like, whole phase is some new stuff, but like grandma's was back in the day, whole phasing, you know what I'm saying? Like they
Yes,
didn't
they
need a
were.
Tinder to do that.
They do not.
But yeah, I just feel like, it's like, I've heard people say and young people say, oh, those old rules don't apply. And you're like, oh, really? Like, you don't want to get to know somebody and then wonder why some of this stuff be blowing up. You know what I'm saying? Get to know them people before you start, you know what I'm saying? Get too intimate with it. You know what I'm saying? You don't got to get intimate with it.
I'm gonna tell
One of
you.
my favorite, I got to shout out to our brother. He was a real one for this one. He told me, and I had a breakup with a previous dude, and he said, go date everybody. Cut
Yep.
up. Date
Cut up.
date all of them. He said, don't have sex with them. Date them all though.
Hate
And I used to,
all
I'm
of
like,
them.
girl, I never had that phase where I'm sitting there like, oh, I'm going to talk to this one guy and see if he likes me. I remember I jokingly said at the time, I wanted a football team. I was like, okay, hit a quarterback. He coming up. I like that. And linebacker over there, he good. You know what I'm saying? Running back, that's what that one. Girl, and you know what I'm saying? My man swooped me up. He shut down the team. He was like,
He did.
you gonna have you gonna have to trade. You know what I'm saying? It's out of here.
Trade.
So, but it did teach me something. I thought that, I got to know so many people and they knew I was girl, I loved telling them that I wasn't gonna have sex with them. That was like my
Oh,
favorite thing.
favorite line
I
ever.
enjoyed it. Yeah, so you I say you want to get to know each other any better? Sure. What do you want to know?
Yes.
I
What do you
mean, I'm
want to
just saying
know?
you could come by my house, when I want to spend a little
Oh
time
no.
with you. Oh, oh no.
No, I don't do
It
that.
let me know who you was. You know what I'm saying? I had
Right.
dudes who would argue with me. I remember this dude telling me, who you think you is? You sitting on that? Who you think you
Yeah.
is? I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
You must think
Sitting
I'm
on
sitting
it?
on it too. That's why you arguing about it.
Exactly. You might think so too. But it was honestly a wonderful opportunity to get to know different dudes and get to know their personalities and what, you know what I mean? When they cut me off over that, I was like, good. Thank you, sir. I
Good.
appreciate you. Good looking
Appreciate
out.
you. And I wasn't
And
mad at
I
him.
never mad. And I got that chance to date. And when I met Terrence, I was like really feeling like, oh, he took that time with me, he didn't even really bring that up. You know what I'm saying? I had brought that up, but you know what I'm saying? But anyway,
Then you
he
was
ain't
for
bring,
them streets.
no, I was for the house.
For the house. That's what it
I
was.
was for the
Right.
bedroom.
Right. You're stupid.
But
That's
yeah.
the thing that blows my mind nowadays when people say, oh, those old rules don't apply. And y'all can come for me. I don't care. The old rules do apply because every time you lay with someone, you lose a piece of yourself and you take in a part of them. And if you're not careful and you end up losing a lot of yourself and taking on a bunch of other people, you will look up one day and not know who you are.
Mm.
So, yes, the old rules do apply. That old rules never said you couldn't date people. Never
Mm.
said you couldn't get to know people. I did like you, Kasha. I got married very young with my first husband, for those of you who are listening, and I was very young when we started dating, like high school sweethearts, got married, and I was with him for a very long time. And then we got a divorce. Once we divorced, I was single at a point in my life where I was an adult. I was working. I was living on my own, and I did want to share my life with someone. And I took on my brother's advice, like you said, and I dated. I didn't have a football team. I'd be like, all right, I got a fisherman, I got a this, I got a motorcycle rider, I got this, and at the time, the best part is I was riding motorcycles myself back in the day. And when we would go on dates, I'd be like, oh, I'll meet you there. And I would ride my motorcycle because at the end of the night, they'd be like, so, you want to come? No, I can't. I got to get home with my motorcycle before it get too late. So I'm out. And then subsequently, I would always get the question, after about 2 or 3 times of pulling that. So, I mean, like, hey girl, so what's up? You want to like you want me to come get you one day so we can come back to my place afterwards? Oh, no. What we going to do there? I need to go home at night. Oh, so you ain't, no, I don't do that when I'm just, we're just getting to know each other. I don't do that with people I'm getting to know. And the people who would be like, oh, I ain't got time for that. Or I would notice they'd get standoffish. I was like, thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's like, you know how this doesn't exactly correlate, but stay with me. You remember in the movie Friday when Smokey says, see, it tells you when there's evil around. When he smelled the weed will tell you when evil's around. This ain't weed, but I'm telling you, if you stall them out, it'll tell you when evil's around. I love that. You're like, get
That's
on
it.
out. Oh, they want to leave because they ain't got it yet. Good. My husband,
Good.
on the other hand, he was like, I didn't even think about that. Where you want to go? Let's go do
Yeah.
some stuff.
Yeah.
And mind you, I say that to say we went out of town and stayed in a hotel together. And he was like, girl, stay on your side. Don't bother me. And I was like, oh, oh, okay. He was like, let me get my covers. You trying to mess with me.
Cutting up.
And after that, I was like, oh, let me clear the bit. Hey, fisherman, you off the roster. Hey, you off too. You off too. Because when you find that person, when you have got to know them and you have abstained so that your mind is clear to be able, it goes along, in my opinion, abstinence kind of goes along with fasting. It lets you be able to clear your mind so you can have a better connection with what's
Mm.
going on in front of you in many cases.
Yeah.
And so it's not that the old rules don't apply. The old rules absolutely apply. Back in the old days, women and men would date, but they did not go and sleep together until they decided that this was my commitment.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I wanted to roll into next is that commitment. For me, that's why I said I wasn't going to be into that situation unless I was in a monogamous committed relationship. That we both understood. I always made that clear. It was never, this is something that I never made it where it was a mystery. Like, I hope we're exclusive. Is he talking to anybody?
Mm-mm.
It was a straight up question. Hey, you know what I'm
Hey,
saying? Where are we going with this? Because I need to know. I didn't
yeah,
know how I need to move this roster up and down. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right,
let me see
right.
who.
How does it move?
Okay. Okay. Because you see, you up top. But if you tell me something where you like, oh, I still want to play the field,
Benched.
boom. Boom, benched.
Benched.
Okay. Yeah. Second string. Don't play with me. You know what I'm
Don't
saying?
play with me.
Um,
I didn't say second string. You know what I used to say? Oh, you back to Sunday night dates. You back to Sunday night dates. Ain't
yeah.
nothing happened on a Sunday night. You got to go to work on Monday. Let's go.
Sunday night
Nothing
dates.
happened Sunday
Cause
night
you know I
dates.
gotta, yeah, nah, I
I
gotta
got
get
to
to
get
the
up for work.
job. Don't play with
I
me.
got to go to work on Monday,
Um,
man.
but
Good
yeah,
seeing
that's
you.
the thing. That's the thing. I'm like, I feel like, commitment is, it's, that was a given for me. Um, so speaking of, like you were saying back in the day, like how they dated, a lot of times too, they had a shorter dating period than us. And I think sometimes that's what changed things. We have a different way. Like some of us, me, we'd be together for a while and then be like, oh, maybe I guess we should. Um, so does love, naturally progress into marriage? Like if you're going to be with someone for that time, are you supposed to marry them? I feel like that is an interesting answer with our dynamic.
I think so too. Um, I feel like yes, and here is why. Because for me, when you translate into love, marriage, I think that we are hardwired in our DNA to want to the next phase, which is children in many cases.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that marriage doesn't necessarily equate foundation, but I think it's for me, I want to make sure that my child, that they know that I am fully aligned with their father. Not that you can't be if you're not married, but I'm fully aligned. And I want them, even down to the paper, that when they look, like my son always says all the time, Mom, we do so and so because we're our last name. He'll say,
Yeah.
we do this because of our last name. And
Mhm.
I think there is some credence. And I look not just at my marriage, I look back at our parents' marriage and
Yeah.
good times, bad times, rough times, whatever. I felt like the marriage, a lot of times, that can sometimes hold together, even when I don't like him, even when I don't like her, even when this is hard, even when I don't know where this is going to go. I think the marriage, because I watched our parents go through, and they are still together now, and it's amazing. We just a couple years ago celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary, but I remember looking back, and I remember taking out of that, like, maybe they didn't like each other, maybe they didn't always get along, maybe the time was hard, maybe money was tight, maybe they didn't know where it was going to go, but the
Mhm.
marriage was a constant in those situations. And
Yeah.
for me, I also love the fact that we were our last name. And that translated for me in a myriad of ways as I grew, because even when I became a cop, I represented my family's last name first
Mhm.
and then myself. And
Yeah.
so for me, I feel like love for me does equate into marriage. When I got with my husband, one of the things that I told him 2 weeks into us dating, I was like, again, when I was arranging the roster, I was like, hey, I need to know where this is going. I do not want to be your girlfriend for the rest of my life. I want to get married. And for me, I didn't have children, so I want to have children. If that's not game for you, that's fine. Let me know. I'll rearrange the roster. You'll be benched, or you'll be a Sunday night date. You know what I'm saying? You'll be back on Sunday nights, and we'll keep it moving, because for me, I wanted to get married. I wanted to take on someone else's last name, not because I wanted to part ways with the last name that I was born with, but I wanted to take that on so that I could build that family of mine, that now we were this, you know,
And so for those of you who don't know, I am not legally married to the man. I feel
to
like
the
we
man.
have to the man. Um, we hippie too close to the sun. Um, but it's funny because it's funny when you mention the name thing. I don't share the name of my children and my man, but I do not feel any less a part of my family. And I
Yeah,
actually do, I take no offense when people say our name, like, when the school will call and they'll be like, oh, Miss, they'll say the kid's name, but they'll say their last name is as Mrs. something. And I'm like, I
right,
take it, what I mean? It doesn't
right.
mean anything for me. Uh, but yeah, I think we're two hippie-ish people who did not prioritize marriage in the way that people conventionally do. But
Yes.
I will say in that I know that it's always a choice then, if that makes sense. Um, I remember going to school with this kid, and I remember it was him, and there was two other siblings that he had, and we were in middle school, and his mom and dad, it was because, like you say, we all had the same last name growing up. I didn't
Hmm.
know that people were not married sometimes. Um, and he's like, "Oh yeah, my mom's this name." And I said, "How is your mom that name?" Like, and I'm thinking his age. I'm like, "Your mom's been with your dad this length of time. How is it?" And he goes, "Oh, they're not married. They just, they live together." And I'm like, "Oh, hmm." And I was like, "But she's been with him that long?" And he's like, "Yeah, yeah." And everything that I knew about this kid's family was just like my family, but not the legal marriage thing. It's not something that I'll say like, "Oh, I will never," but, I think we're definitely Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell, and sorry. But there's a lot of times where I'm looking and I'm like, "Oh, I'm actually making an active choice because I don't have to divvy up anything. I don't have to make any legal decisions, to leave. If I wanted to go, I could go." So, sometimes I do look at that and say, is that like a safe place for me? I don't really know what that means, but I
Yeah.
know that there's a lot of times there is choice, and I still, Imma call him that's my common law husband because we was talking about that the other day. He was like, "If common law was around, I mean, nobody would bat an eye." We are not in a common law state, but,
No.
yeah,
Used to be
it's
though, I
interesting
think.
that way, where there definitely is like that active choice for me. And like I said, it's not off the table. It's just the way we think for now. I definitely feel like right now, I feel like that's our active choice. We still do a lot of things. I mean, we raise two children together. We live together. We do all these things together. There's a lot of decisions we have to make together. Um, and, you know, I don't take it as it like we jokingly, like I said, we say we call each other a common law. He's like, "Common law around you, my common law wife." You know what I'm saying? I ain't mad at it, Yeah, so I would say that's an unconventional partnership, but,
Yes.
it's something, it's my decision for them.
We talked about in the very beginning of our show about how this is part of our dynamic that I think is very interesting that people, we have such an age gap, but then on top of it, we live life somewhat differently, but we respect each other in the way that we choose to live life. So, interesting.
I think we can talk about love all day long, but, you know what I'm saying? We gotta wrap this
We
up,
do.
you know what I'm saying?
We do.
So, make sure you follow us on socials. It's always I'm trying the number 2, have a convo on Instagram, on TikTok, um, and also make sure you go to streettales.com and check out other shows that are in our network and check out I'm trying to have a conversation with you. You can listen to it there as well. But for now, I'm Kasha, and that is Monique. And this conversation is over. It's done.